the counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
There's a drop of goodness in everyone. Share goodness with someone today.
Malta Guinness. Enjoy a world of good.
You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we're live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, to begin our conversation on the latest strike embarked upon by ASU, and that strike started yesterday, February the 14th. Let's listen into this background report by our correspondent, Ekene Undulwe.
Over the years, issues of strike actions in public-owned Nigerian universities have become an annual affair, and students can no longer predict what year they will graduate. This has largely made private universities a preferred choice for those who can afford it. Just yesterday, the nation was hit with another announcement of an industrial action by the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU. President of ASU, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, declared a comprehensive and total strike, which took effect from Monday, February 14, and would last for an initial period of 4 weeks. Though the announcement was made yesterday, the strike has been looming for some time now, due to the existence of many unresolved issues between ASU and the federal government. The union had expressed grievances over the inability of the federal government to fulfill some of the agreements it made as far back as 2009.
When we went to go on strike in November, NIREC interceded, and we gave them the opportunity. But between then and now, we will never have any formal invitation, whether for a meeting or what they intend to do, till now.
ASU had on November 15, 2021, given the federal government a 3-week ultimatum to meet its demands. Other issues of contention include funding for revitalization of public universities and academic allowances, university transparency accountability solution, promotion arrears, renegotiation of 2009 ASU federal government agreement, and the inconsistencies in integrated payroll and personnel information system payment. Minister of Education Adamu, however, responded in a statement that the Academic Staff Union of University embarked on industrial action without intimating the ministry. The statement added that the ministry's doors are always open for discussion, but no such avenue has been explored by the union. What does the recent strike action portend for university education in Nigeria? What is the way forward for Nigeria's education sector? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria shall be speaking to the issues in a moment.
And the issue once again is ASU Strike 2022. Same issues, and of course, let me quickly introduce our guests right here in the studio. Joining us via Zoom, Honorable Aminu Suleiman Goro, Chairman House Committee on Tertiary Education and Services. He'll be joining us soon. In the studio, we have Professor Mahmoud Mainoma, former Vice Chancellor at Nasarawa State University. We're glad to have you, VC.
Good morning. Welcome.
All right. Also here with us in the studios, we would like to introduce a former president of ASU. He's Professor Abdullahi Sule Kano of Bayero University, also in Kano. Professor Sule Kano, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you.
And joining us via Zoom is the incumbent president of ASU, Professor Emmanuel Oshodeke. Professor Oshodeke, pleasure to have you with us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
All right. ASU president, you listen to our background report and your stories about ASU and the hints about whether or not it would embark on another round of industrial action. Those stories have been aplenty in the media, and yesterday it said, look, we are going on strike yet again. And some persons, of course, are going to ask themselves whether this is really news after all.
Well, we have followed all the processes. We have written to the Ministry of Times issues we signed rather of understanding in 2020 December before we call off that strike, and the issues for which we went on strike then were well laid out, and on the timeline for implementation were indicated, and none of that timeline exceeded 3 months. But today we're 2022, and most of those issues have not been resolved. We agreed that the government will release 30 billion naira as a sign of commitment to implementing the 2009 agreement, which is released 220 billion naira on a yearly basis. Although the 30 billion was as a sign of commitment, but the real issue had not been addressed. The issue of EAA, they said they would release 21 billion naira for as a sign that the EAA had been mainstreamed into the salary system in 2020, where in 2022, nothing was done in 2021. In 2022, it was done in the budget. They set up a decision panel to Nigerian universities in February 2021. We are in February 2022. The result of that, the report of that panel had not been released. We are at peace that the force on the system that have probably ruined the system today. Today, if a professor retires, the professor resigns, or you leave the country, you cannot recruit a professor to replace that. So the university has been strangled. You read recently the NUC indicated that we have just 100,000 lecturers in all Nigerian universities, which is strangling the system, but we cannot recruit. You are also aware that the UTAS, which they challenge us to produce, and we produce within 3 months, is more than a year now. They cannot test it. And the test they brought to us indicated that the UTAS passed all the tests, passed all the 3 stages of the test, which is the technical test, where it's scored more than almost 80%, end user test, which is scored almost 90%, and then you see facilities. That is not our business. But they see indicated that it should not be implemented. Meanwhile, the IPs they are using to ruin the country today was never tested by NIDA. If a software is coming from outside to be used in your own country, you didn't bother to test it, you just apply because of personal interest. The one produced by your country, homegrown by your academics, you tested it, it's called A, excellent, in all the 2 major parameters affecting us, which is the technical issues and end user test, and you say it should not be applied. Should that happen in a normal country? The one you brought from outside that ruined the country, according to the Auditor General today, you didn't test it. The one by your own system that you can correct any minute, score above 70% in all the issues, you say it should not be applied. So, and then we have the issue of our agreement. In 2021 May, the government and ASU team sat down and reached and come up with a draft agreement, and we agreed that the government will take your own to your government, while ASU will take to our members. When you talk to your government and there are issues that you believe is not suitable, that is not agreeable to the government, you indicate them and come back to us and we meet again. That was in May 2021. We are in February 2022. They have not bothered. And the Minister of Labor yesterday was saying that we are trying to set up a panel. Should it take you 8 months to set up a panel if you are serious? And that is the issue with our members.
All right, Mr. President, ASU President, I just, you know, some people will say, when you talk about ASU strike, it's like, you know, flogging a dead horse. I mean, we all, 2020 ASU went on strike, 2021 ASU went on strike, 2022 ASU is going on strike for the same issues, recurrent issues, the same issues. Are we saying that there's been no threshold, you know, surpassed between you and government? How morally sincere is ASU in your demands?
Let me put this. This is your question you should put to the government. There's a government of the federation. You sat down with your team, and they said we'll do ABCD within 3 months. And you have spent, and also have been patient at that 3 months for about 1 year, and that issue were not resolved, and nobody is interested. Can't talk to any of them. Nobody is interested in it. Should we just fold our hand and allow the university system to die just like the public primary and secondary schools have died? Is that what the nation wants? As we speak, so is there any foreign lecturer teaching Nigerian universities while our own are going outside? Do you have any foreign student in our university, which is what the university should be? I think what we are talking about, look, let for the first time as a country take education as a priority. When you go to those countries doing well, they put between 15 and 26% of their budget to education. Here we are putting 5-6%. So your question should be directed to the government. And you know why? The government are not interested. Those who are speaking are not interested because their children are abroad, attending those schools that they are well funded. And you are killing our own school here. So our own idea is let the government, we are not interested in a strike, but we must change the trajectory. We must stop this idea of taking education as if it doesn't matter.
ASU President, tell us, who is on strike right now?
Come again, please.
I said, tell us, who is on strike right now? Is it
the Academic Staff Union of Universities, after exhausting all the possible means to get the government to show interest in the agreement and MOA, our union is on strike.
Okay. Again, for purposes of clarification, that is to say, teachers or lecturers in federal universities and state universities, is that correct?
I said the Academic Staff Union of University is on strike. We don't separate ourselves, we are together. There's nothing like federal or state when it comes to funding education. There's nothing like state when the response to the issue we have talked about. In the negotiation team, it was headed by Pro-Chancellor of federal and state universities. So there's nothing like federal ASU and state ASU. We have Academic Staff Union of University. Meanwhile, you see, when ASU go on strike, the media react. Like,
Prof, it looks like, all right.
But this issue.
Sorry, there was a freeze. So just, probably it's a low bandwidth issue that Prof is having. Once it's back on, we will.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, we can hear you now, yes.
What I'm saying that when the government, because the MOA, the timeline ended in March last year. And after that, the government went on strike with nobody raised issues. And the strike lasted from May till now, nobody raised issues. If the government have come to implement those things we talked about, do we need to have a strike? So I want the Nigerian public to appeal to the government to implement what they signed with us, to improve the Nigerian university system, to give our education, our children good education. I can tell you, go to the school, no laboratories, you are using stove as Bunsen burner and what have you. And where is the impact on the country today? In the 70s, 80s, 60s, we won't hear of a building collapsing in Nigeria. But today, there is no day a building does not collapse in Nigeria because of the poor situation of our universities, where the children are trained to come and man these public offices, and they are not in a position to regulate what you should do. So we should look at the impact on the country and not just about strike. Strike is a sign. It's a symptom. It's not the problem.
Okay, again, we're engaging you because we're told that you'll leave, before the end of the program. But the reports we are hearing from the side of the government now says it was not intimated, by members of your union, your NEC, of this strike. You didn't, ASU didn't consider it necessary to again engage government before this declaring this strike?
Look, we have written to the government. They have pardoned us. No more respond to us. So what do we do? Well, let me also assure you, a group, the NIREC, intervened. That is in November last year, they wrote to us. And because of them, the strike would have started in November. We acceded to them because they are the leader of the two major religions in Nigeria group. And we acceded to them, they will intervene. Between that time and this one, they met with us twice. Agreed. They met with the government team. After meeting with the House, the government team responded. We told that NIREC that, look, tell the government team, because our NEC is coming up on the 12th of February, please, that was on the 3rd. We met with NIREC team on the 3rd. And we told them that our NEC is coming up on the 12th, and we need to have something to tell our members. That they should try and arrange a meeting between we and the government team that was set up by the president, as we were told by NIREC, made up of the chief of staff, Minister of Labor, and Minister of Education, that tell the government that we arrange a meeting between them and us so that we can discuss and have something to give to our members. They have not responded since then. I mean, the government team refused to have that meeting. We're in touch with the NIREC, but the government team refused to come for that meeting. These two people they talk about refused to come for that meeting. So what do? We have not to tell our members because they refused to organize a meeting that we can resolve the issue and we'll have something to give to our members. So those three people, the Chief of Staff, the Minister of Labor, and Minister of Education, should be held responsible because if they have acceded to the request by NIREC to have a meeting with us, a tripartite meeting, maybe some of these issues would have been resolved and we can talk to our members. So those three people should be held responsible.
Sorry, the National Assembly also have, the two chambers have their committees that are also supposed to interface with you, the House of Reps and of course the Senate. Did you approach them?
Look, on this issue, we met with the Speaker of the House of Reps in October last year, the tripartite meeting. The House of Reps, remember the Speaker, the government team, represented by the Minister of Finance, Minister of Education, and then ASU. We met, and they gave us how they were going to resolve this issue within a few days. That on the government side, on the negotiation, they will quickly put a tripartite committee together to look at it within 1 week. That was in October. Nothing happened. We met with the Senate President last year, 2021, on the same issue, present the youth to them. And as soon as that meeting is over, they stopped. So we have met with all of them. Informally, we also met with the Minister of Education, informally, last week. Informally. But till now, we have not had any official documentation, invitation or anything. And as a union, we don't just go to a meeting without invitation. We don't go to bust into a minister office. We follow the procedures. So if they were serious about this issue, we have been in the press for the past 2 weeks, appealing to them to call us so that we talk. And every Nigerian we agree with us, we have been in the press for the past 2 weeks. None of them wrote to invite us to a meeting. So do we bust into the office? So that is the issue. They are not interested. They will not be interested until there's a strike.
Professor Shodeke, thank you. In the meantime, we're going to pause you and return to the Abuja studios, where we earlier introduced Professor Menoma, former Vice Chancellor of Nasarawa State University in Kefi, and Professor Abdullahi Sule Kano, former President also of ASU. Professor Sule Kano, I mean, some persons would argue that the news would have been if the incumbent executive of ASU did not organize its own strike. It appears that in 30 years or so, in the history of ASU, every ASU leadership must show its muscle so that it's not seen as being a good boy of the federal government. So one way to do that is to shake the table, go on strike, and the longer the strike, probably the more serious you get government attention. Why should this be so?
Well, this position you just presented is essentially an establishment media position. And it has been reoccurring for several decades. the fact is that if the media is controlled by ASU, our presenters will not say the same thing.
What would they say?
They will put it straight that crisis has been building up. Those responsible to apprehend the crisis have abandoned it, and that's the news. That's the news.
From your perspective.
That's right. Yes, you are speaking from the perspective of establishment. And from our perspective is that when facts, history, and objective circumstance of an event is presented, it's always presented on the side of the people that have most strength, power, and authority to present their picture to the media and to the people. So the instrument of the media is the hand of government. For us, really, we say this is a propaganda that does not help anything. In fact, it's also a moral question. Why? Because the fundamental and objective circumstance of Nigerian education system has been pushed aside. You are concerned about the effects, the symptoms of crisis, which will not take us anywhere. Why can't the news be that after 2009 agreement, in which at the end of that agreement, Gamedal Onosode of blessed memory and us signed a commitment that, one, we would double our effort to address the challenges in Nigerian universities, and that we will do all the best we could not to be provoked into any strike if government meets its obligations. And he, on behalf of government, he assured us that government would meet its obligations and the universities will be built. He has seen from our perspective after that 3 years of interaction, some of the issues we are telling him about a university system, he has to go and find out himself. For example, when we compare the university system in Europe, in the United States, and in China, he thought what we are saying about the university in China may not be correct. He on his own visited China and saw what really a university is. When he came back, he agreed with us that what we are saying, in fact, is an understatement. That the very nature of the systems, shows that we are not really operating modern university system. Our system is archaic. It's over 60 years old now. That we should change it. And what pains us as scholars is that it's not that we don't have the knowledge of changing it. It's not that we haven't done the research to change it. But those who are governing society, have refused to allow us to change it.
Okay, let me just...
And therefore, strike is the best weapon.
We are industrial union. By the principle of labor relations, I teach labor relations, I teach industrial relations. Strike is a right of a worker. It's a fundamental right of a worker. It's enshrined in all the labor laws of the world.
It's democratic as well. So
well, it's not about it. Well, you can say it's labor democracy.
Yes. Let me just, respond to your earlier statement about establishment position based on establishment. I don't think it's an establishment position. Kingsley's question was based on, perception that is out there, and the conclusion is based on the frequency of the strike. So it's not an establishment position at all. It's just a deduction that has been made, a conclusion that has been made from recurring incidents. So it's not an establishment position at all.
Allow me to respond to that.
But let me ask.
No, he wishes to respond.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes.
I teach methodology of research. Perception studies is just a method in trying to establish facts and truth in the life of a society or any living organism that you are studying. It does not touch about the reality. That's why scientific studies are not based on perceptions. And perceptions could be erroneous. Let me give you a typical example. the perception of Nigerians that we are running a democracy is erroneous. Because if you look at concretely, historically, the transformation of the system, we are not moving towards democracy, we are in fact moving away from it. But the perception is that we are a democratic country. Okay? But the strong information bombardment of society makes people to perceive that, yes, Nigeria is a democracy. I study politics. In the field of politics, what we are running in Nigeria is not democracy. We call it plutocracy. Government of the rich, by the rich, for the rich. As against government of the people, by the people, for the people. Good. We know students of political science who analyze leadership and enthronement of leadership, how much it costs to become a senator in Nigeria.
I wish this was
a scientific thing.
I wish this was an academic environment.
It is in a way.
In a way.
Our students of communication are listening and are learning from this. They would have
looked at it, because if ASU has gone on strike every other year, then it becomes regular. You can make deductions from that. But let's go ahead. Kisley, you have...
Just Professor Muhammad Mainoma, former Vice Chancellor on Nasarawa State University. You know, I was going to say the same old story about ASU going on strike. Frank Sinatra, you know, has a song about same old Saturday night. So we're back again to the same story. And look, what does this mean?
It means that those that are responsible for making the strike happen are not serious, because it is the same issues. So you find out that the government, if it were that ASU is going on strike for different issues, then you now look at it that it is the fault of ASU. But if it is the same issue, funding, quality, regulations, things that are always the same issues that government is allowing ASU to go on strike for, then you find out that it is not really the fault of ASU. Because you go every year, like you said, there is a strike. What is the issue? It is the same old issue. And government will say that we are going to do this, we are going to do this, we are going to do. At the end of the day, they will not do it. So invariably, instead of looking at it from the point of view that it is the ASU that is the problem, I think it is the owners of the university that are the problem. Because you cannot allow people to be complaining of the same thing and you have not solved that problem, and you say that they should keep quiet. You see, what happened in this country today is such that the priority of government is just not about education. We must tell ourselves the fact. Because it is, in fact, different governments do the same thing. You take it from the strike of 1992, for instance. It has not changed. The issues have not changed. It is about funding university. It's about management of university. It's about facilities in the university. So you look at it that these people are saying every day that the condition in this environment is such that it does not give us to give our best. The condition in this environment does not provide for us to produce quality graduates. And the issues have not changed. But government is not addressing those issues. And that is where there is a problem. And the option that ASU has is also to keep quiet and allow things to go worse than what it is today. But you find out that we are academics. We cannot see what is wrong. If today, nobody, when I went to primary school in my village, there is no any private primary school. And it is not because government cannot provide to take care of the population. But today, I do not know any government primary school that is functional, that anybody will want to take his son to that kind of primary school. So do we want the level that our universities will also reach that kind of stage, that nobody will want, today as it is, most of our people that have the resource will not want to take their children to public universities. But as of today, the public universities are still better, much, much better than the private universities.
And the private universities are not going on strike?
They are not going on strike because their motive is not to provide quality education for the greater majority. It is to provide education for the few.
Okay.
You didn't add whether it is quality or non-qualitative for the few.
It is not qualitative. It is not qualitative because
sure private investors will respond to you.
Yeah, no, I don't have that problem because the truth of the matter is that it is the majority. In fact, more than 50% of those teaching in the private universities are also coming from the public universities. So they do not even have their own resource. So, and unfortunately, because these people do not even have the time, they do not put in as much as they do in the public universities.
Okay.
Because they go just for the little money they can get from there.
Okay, all right, Prof. I don't want to be reductionist. Assuming, as you have said, government does not prioritize education, and according to you also, this has been the situation for a long time. As I said, I don't want to be reductionist. Maybe we should hand over the government to ASU to run.
It will be fantastic. But just like Professor Sule said, the issue is that the government is not for the majority of the people. So and unfortunately, ASU do not have the resource to participate in the kind of democracy we are doing today in order to take over government. But certainly, ASU can do better in management of today's economy than what those that are doing it today.
Let me put you on hold there, Professor Mainoma, who don't want to drag that. But let me bring Professor Kanu. Obviously, and I must say, the state of things in our universities or in the universities, it's not something to write home about. I mean, there really is need for upgrade. There really is need for infrastructural turnaround. I do agree. And in some, state universities and in some federal universities where you see some degree of, modernity or some degree of, quality, maybe the VCs there have bent a bit backward, to go the extra mile to do something by themselves. But I really find it, worrisome to know that the government is not interested in meeting the needs of ASU or in meeting the needs of, the tertiary institutions. If you look at the items, they are very, very, they are a must-have in those institutions. Are you talking about infrastructure? Are you talking about quality? Are you talking about the welfare of the lecturers? These are things that we don't contest about. But Prof, is it a matter of priority for government or resource scarce to meet your needs?
Well, luckily I'm a student of political economy. And I understand how human society build economy. Okay? A country like Nigeria, with our resource base, that nobody would argue that we have a poor economic base, a resource base that will lead us to the circumstance we are in. So it's a matter of priority. Look, if you take South Korea, when they are in conflict with North Korea, when the communists wanted to overrun South Korea, they are in a war. South Korea has never, even under that circumstance, invested less than 40% of their resources in education under war. If you take Nigeria in the First Republic, the resources were, in terms of revenue, were minimal. Go and see the first generation universities, how they were built. No government today, either federal or state government, will conceive building the kind of structures you find in University of Lagos or the regional university like Obafemi Awolowo University now, or Ahmadu Bello University Zaria. Why? It's a matter of priority. Look, that's why I said the education system we are running is archaic. scholars and students have the capacity to build universities. In some systems, some of these challenges are handled by both scholars and students. In fact, in ABU, where we attended, there are certain structures there that are built by students and scholars. And some of the faculties, apply the knowledge, they are teaching the student in practical terms and get them to do it. Okay, but for the fact that the ideology of the state and its economic policy is not along that line. The question is that what a university can do today, they are forced to contract it out to somebody who will come and do a mess. Instead of the law to exempt the universities to do what they can do by themselves. In our agreement, we have a section of agreement that says that government should utilize the universities in addressing some of these, challenges, as experts, as consultants, and so on.
Sorry, Prof. You know why I asked?
Yes.
Because you have come to the extent of 2020, from 2020, 2021, to the extent of having an MOU, signing an MOU, and then even going further to have an MOA.
That's why I'm saying it's not a priority of government. It's not a priority of government. How much has government given as bailout to Gencos and Discos in Nigeria between this period? How much? You make the calculation.
And the universities need light anyway.
Of course. And the universities can generate light.
Why are they not generating power now?
Because you have strangulated them. We have students who are researching and scholars who are researching, for example, on solar energy. But go and see their laboratories.
Prof, let's pause you. It looks like the connection to the ASU president is off. If it's back on, all right, the connection is not back on. Once we're able to link up with him again via Zoom, we'll bring him into the conversation. Professor Menoma, at the end of the day, some persons would argue that, look, part of what we are dealing with here, all these demands and so on and so forth, it relates to the ownership and governance structure of our universities, public universities. That public universities are like parastatals. We make comparisons with other jurisdictions, say the US and so on and so forth. But those institutions, a good number of them are self-funding and they get generous grants, I would imagine. But here, public universities are like parastatals. And therefore, the creativity that you would also expect from such institutions, the creativity is deadened. Which is why you keep having all these recurrent issues over funding, over X, Y, Z, and so on and so forth. When can we get away from this parastatal mode and get universities to actually function? Universities also demanded for autonomy. Universities have autonomy. So what is constraining them?
It's all right to think that it is important that that level of creativity should come into play into the university system. But it does not take away the fact that there is basic minimum that the owners of the university must do. And that is where the problem is. You find there are very good universities today. If you go to even the university I headed recently, you will find that there are structures, there are interventions from individuals and organizations that come into play. But it is important that if the government say, I am going to do this, then let government do that. Then the vice chancellor or whoever is managing that particular university will then think of other things. You find out that what we are talking about now is the basic minimum. What the ASU is asking government to do is not about running university to the standard that it is desirable. It is just that this is the very basic minimum that you should do in order to provide an enabling environment. But there are a lot that can be done by the kind of interventions that you are talking about. And some of the managers of this university are really doing it. But it will reach a level that everything you can generate from that kind of intervention, from funding from external sources, will be used for the purpose of doing what is the minimum. And that is why we cannot compete favorably with other universities elsewhere. Just like you are saying, even to generate power, even to bring water, there are even sanitation within the environment. It is something that we never go and ask government that they should come and do that. The arguments that you are seeing are that there are certain things that are just basics that government should provide. And that is what ASU is worried about. It is not that we want them to do things that are beyond what they can do. But day in, day out, they seem not to appreciate the fact that ASU is a partner in progress. ASU wants to have an environment where we can call a university a university.
See, Prof.
Can I react to the
Yes.
parastatal's thesis?
Yes.
You see, I don't know if you know the history of some of these universities you are comparing Nigerian universities with. The fundamental basis of success of most of the universities in the liberal world, Western world, is that ab initio, the state set them, that is the government, set them with an economic base that will keep them surviving. One of it is land grant. Besides giving adequate budget and spatial allocations, if you look at the successes of Oxford or Cambridge, you also compare the successes of even private-based universities like Harvard, they have to do with certain contributions of the state. We attempted to do that in this country in the form of agreement. Our 1992 agreement agrees that the property of the federal government in Lagos, which they are abandoning, some of them are still abandoned there, should be handed over to the universities, to the pro-chancellors of Nigerian universities to manage them and have a kind of holding company that will reduce the burden of budget on the Nigerian government. And the whole argument about even TED Fund, what brought it into existence, is the same kind of idea. From that time to this time, we've generated dozens of other ideas that will limit these funding challenges. But government is not ready to implement. That's the frustration. So you cannot deny, the basis of a particular development trend, and of course blame the institution of not. It's not about the council or the vice chancellors in this case. It's about the fundamental laws that will put this university in sound footing.
Look, Prof, gentlemen, let me put this question there, because we keep talking about poor infrastructure, inadequate X, Y, Z, and so on and so forth. The Babangida administration or regime created what is today known as TED Fund. TED Fund. And
under pressure from ASU.
That's what I'm saying. And 2%.
ASU got the idea anyway.
2%, and ASU has been acknowledged for providing the pressure for that. 2% of companies' profit goes into that, into the funding. We say, look, this will be something that we'll take up for. And Professor Bogoro, who is one of your colleagues, is executive secretary of TED Fund, and before him, others had also been in charge of TED Fund. And usually you have interventions, a broad range of interventions for infrastructure, interventions for training. You have scholarships provided, for instance, by PDTF, which is the Petroleum Technology Development Fund. You have publishing grants also been fast-tracked by TED Fund. If, in spite of what they are doing and what they still have on the books to continue to do for our universities, because on the one hand, you have had private universities canvassing that they also be brought into the beneficiary list of TED Fund interventions. Assuming the argument is that, oh, TED Fund is not doing enough, or is part of its interventions of TED Fund, we are still having these challenges. should TED fund be scrapped so that we know that the money goes elsewhere and then we spend it?
Excuse me, please.
it will create more problem.
You see, TED fund, as the original idea of it in 1992, we were challenged that, look, you insisted that the sons and daughters of poor people in Nigeria cannot pay fees to go to Nigerian universities. Because the idea of government is that less parents pay fees. Okay? We say if you do that, you strangulate Nigeria because the majority of Nigerian people won't have that money. Then the Babangida's regime actually challenged us, bring out an idea then, if you don't want us to introduce fees. Then we say, look, apply education tax, which he accepted. And that's history that everybody recognized. Okay? But the fundamental idea of TED fund is an intervention fund. What that means is that when there is a budget deficit, the fund will release the difference to university to meet its budget needs. Where we are now that, not only that the structure of budget in Nigerian universities have been distorted, completely, we are not doing budgeting in the university as it is when the first generation universities came up. Okay? But a new structure that is so devastating to the university has been introduced.
By whom?
By government. By accepting the ideas of Bretton Woods institutions. In fact, we had to go on strike to fight the implementation of NUSIP, Nigeria University Innovation Project. We are here in this country, somebody will come from the United States to influence the policy of education in Nigeria. No Nigerian will go to the United States and interfere into the affairs of their internal affairs. When we are able to stop that, the same money that was to be loaned, this money is going to the government of Nigeria as loan, which would have undermined the university system. You know, the government still follow some of the principal directives of these institutions.
Such as?
The policy support instrument that government signed after exiting from the debt. I'm sure if you have read that document, you can see the trap in that document that Nigeria will soon fall back into the condition of debt crisis, and we are already in it. Okay? Limit your budget to social welfare facilities in your country. It's the laissez-faire principle, you know, or rather the so-called, you know, what we call in political economy, imperialist strategy to limit the advancement of any economy in this world. Limit your investment, Prof, you know, in education.
Prof, I'm sorry to interject so that we don't over-elaborate the conversation. Let's structure it around the current strike, the basis of the strike and what needs to be done.
That's what I was trying to explain to you as far as TED fund is concerned.
Yeah, Prof.
Okay,
Prof.
So TED fund today
the question I asked,
has been exhausted. In fact, very soon the money will be thin.
Okay, that is to say, when you say the money will be thin, the tax on the basis of which TED fund receives its finances, it's company's profit. Professor Benoma, you are a chartered accountant. My question is, if the presumption is that universities continue to, by ASU, that universities remain in a prostrate state, whereas when you go to many campuses, including yours, and federal universities, you will see emblazoned on the TED fund intervention. They will write the year. Yes. TED fund this one, lecture theaters and so on and so forth, being built, publications being sponsored, doctoral students also being sponsored. That's why I asked the question. If this is not enough, should we scrap TED fund?
No. You see, why I'm saying that TED fund should not be scrapped? Because you are saying, for instance, that we are saying the state as it is not adequate.
Which
and you are saying that the level of funding, the level of intervention is not adequate. And you are now saying reduce it further. So by scrapping TED fund, it means you are going to reduce it further. And most of the universities cannot even operate. Because, in fact, that is, when you go to some places, you hear that they will say that this is a TED fund university. Because all the projects, all the you find out that they are sponsored by TED fund. So as it is now, because of the existence of TED fund, government on its own is not even making the contribution that it's supposed to do ordinarily. Because, like it is said,
that's ordinarily government revenue. And government revenue goes...
for a purpose.
Prof, I mean, look, if you were doing your accounting, it's ordinarily such monies would have gone into the treasury. I would now say, look, specially allocated for education and then for third fund.
No, in accounting, there is main source of revenue, then there are other sources. For instance, if you are selling bread and you decide to sell a vehicle that you use to transport bread with, and you make profit from the sale of that vehicle, it is not ordinary revenue. Your revenue is from the sale of bread. Then other income will now come the profit you make as a result of selling your vehicle. So in this case, you find out that what government is doing, because there is state fund, the normal interjection that they are supposed to do, they have abandoned it. And it is creating more problem. That we are saying, even with the TED fund, it is not adequate. Okay. They are supposed to do more. And you are now saying that if they withdraw TED fund, we are going to go to a very dangerous situation.
Oh, okay. Claire, yes. I know that we're going to go on a short break. When you say that government is not taking on its ordinary intervention and is now heavily reliant on TED fund for a number of these things, maybe you should give our viewers an example or examples of such interventions that you would expect from government line budget that we are not getting now. But I will mention one thing. Who pays the salaries of university teachers?
Well, the salaries of university teachers, I think, earned allowance.
No. That's not earned allowance.
It is still part of government.
Clear. No. My question is clear.
Yes.
Namely, what are the other forms of intervention that you would expect from the government? Okay. Plus, who pays the salaries of ASU members?
Okay, see, please keep it on hold. Okay. We'll have to take this break. When we come back, and then we'll take all the questions.
Busy ancient city of Onitsha is a commercial hub with millions of commuters seamlessly linking other states daily for business, leisure, and other purposes. To upscale its road network, the construction of a 1.6-kilometer long second Niger bridge, including a 10.3-kilometer highway furnished with other infrastructure, has been in motion by the federal government. This project will ease congestion on the existing 56-year-old Onitsha bridge and boost the economic capacity of the state as it easily connects to other parts of the country. The completion of the world-class second Niger bridge Onitsha will be one of the many proud moments of the state, its people, Nigerians, and foreign investors. Onitsha, which hosts the largest market in Africa, is geared up to boast of an impressive road network. Once again, these moments are made alive by the federal government, and it is deserving of all the applause.
There are certain moments in the day when I need my me time to just unwind and indulge.
Now available in 30 grams and 450 grams.
We've been trying our best to contain the situation, and in our operations, we've been able to make a lot of recoveries. We've been able to also arrest suspects that are involved in this kind of activities, and we've been able to also recover particularly arms and ammunition from those who are carrying it unlawfully and disturbing the peace of the people. But generally, our morale in the Nigerian police is always guided by our commitment to do what we have sworn to do. Peace and security must be looked into as a priority by all. To look at security as the business of all of us.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
We've been trying our best to contain the situation, and in our operations, we've been able to make a lot of recoveries. We've been able to also arrest suspects that are involved in this kind of activities, and we've been able to also recover, particularly arms and ammunition from those who are carrying it unlawfully and disturbing the peace of the people. But generally, our morale in the Nigerian police is always guided by our commitment to do what we have sworn to do. Peace and security must be looked into as a priority by all. To look at security as the business of all of us.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
We are all Nigerians. Against all odds, we shall and must remain united. We may have our challenges, our problems, and setbacks. However, together we shall overcome them all. What doesn't break us shall make us stronger. This is the mindset that shall bring peace, progress, and prosperity to our beloved country. Do not let tribal and religious sentiments govern how you think, act, or feel. Don't be influenced by those who want to destroy our precious national unity. Everybody who is a Nigerian is your brother and your sister. This is the mindset of the new Nigeria. It is also the mindset that we must all adopt. Let us support each other in creating the Nigeria of our dreams. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
The center is purposely established in order to provide these services that are examinations, medical examinations, and investigations that were not provided for in Kano as well as the entire Northwest region. It's equipped with modern technological equipment in terms of radiological services. We have MRI 1.5 Tesla. We have digital X-ray as well as 4D ultrasound equipment. The importance of the center cannot be overemphasized. Just within 1 year, the center attended to thousands and numerous patients as well as medical examinations. NKDC is established in order also to provide these healthcare facilities as a discounted price.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we're looking at the ASU 4-week strike, which commenced yesterday. And we have our guest right here in the studio, Professor Mainoma, former VC of Nasarawa State University. And we also have Professor Abdullahi Sule Kano, former president of Academic Staff Union of Universities. Just before we went on this short break, Ainsley asked a question, which I said will be answered when we come back. Professor Mainoma.
Yeah, thank you very much. The question is simple, that what is it that government is doing that that is supposed to do that it's not doing since it is paying salary? You see, TED fund has nothing to do with hostels, for instance. TED fund has nothing to do with road infrastructure in the university. TED fund has nothing to do with recurrent expenditure like sanitation, all those issues. These are matters that government is supposed to provide apart from salaries. And there is also the issue of those things that you do teaching with, other materials that you require for making presentations in class. So those things are actually not part of those things that TED Fund provide. So if you are talking about salary, even the salary, you realize that because of the volume of work that the academics undertake, it generated this idea of an allowance. And you find out that the an allowance is also not something that you can use TED fund money to pay for. So it is government that is supposed to pay for that. So all these together is even more than the actual salary itself. So, and it is the fund that government is supposed to provide. So without that kind of normal provisions by government, it is impossible for the university to run normally.
Okay, I'd like Professor Kanu to also, take on that question before I put mine.
Well, I didn't get the question clear. What are you interrogating?
He asked the question.
Yes.
What is it that government ought to do and is not doing? And is government paying the salaries of ASU members of your union?
You see, running a university is not just about paying salaries. Okay? Normally, if you engage a worker, you have to pay his salary. He puts his labor. He has that contract with you. You have to pay him. But you have to provide him with the tools of work. So it's beyond the matter of just paying salaries. Okay? And for a university system to flourish, beside the basic remuneration of scholars, that is for their teaching and research, you also provide fund for them to do that research. You give them a natural environment in which they will work effectively. Look, there are Nigerians who went and set up universities in some of these African countries. The standard they set there, you can't compare it with what we have.
Okay, let me pop
so
my...
the fact is that there is, in the question of wage administration and, of course, in the question of even development plans, there is a scientific ratio of what you must spend as a country if you are serious, okay, to sectors of your economy. And education is the most driving, the strongest driving force for development. So in most societies, the emphasis is that education takes the large chunk of the resources of government. That's why in the First Republic, you find that all the regional governments, put heavily amount, Sarana was putting almost about 40% of the resources in northern Nigeria to education. That's why they could do it.
So it's not about aware or not aware that some of the TED fund interventions go beyond buildings and structures.
We are aware.
Laboratories,
we are aware.
Laboratories, equipment,
yes,
have also been provided, and these are some of the tools of work you need.
Yes,
they are not enough. This is our argument.
Okay, you need more.
Look,
okay,
right
fine.
now we have laboratories in BUK that we can't furnish because some of the equipment the university cannot afford to buy.
Okay, so Professor Kanu and Professor Mainoma, what TED fund is doing is a drop of whatever in the ocean.
No, it is substantial. We are not saying what they are doing.
No. When compared to what you need,
yes,
compared to what university system needs
to
run effectively,
yes,
that's right. Fine. So within this variety of needs, I'm wondering wherein lies the autonomy that ASU keeps fighting for.
It is not financial autonomy. Let us try to understand this autonomy. The autonomy that the universities are seeking for, it is the one that will enable them operate without hindrance, that they will be able to take decisions without interference. That if Senate say this is an academic matter, it should be the matter for Senate to determine to the end.
Yeah, government...
If on policy matter, the council of the university should be allowed to take positions, and that is final. So those are the kind of things that we're talking about. It is not about funding. It is not financial autonomy we're looking for. That funding of the university should be done by the owners of the university.
Remember he who pays the piper?
No, he should not dictate the tune.
Is it an old...
No, you see, it is when you want to do dancing that you can say that when you pay...
It's a free market ideology.
It is when you want. It is when you want to dance that you can do that kind of it. But when you are talking about development, it is. You cannot. In fact, if that is the case, then government do not have a business in doing anything. Because it is the people.
Profs, I know that the issue of autonomy is still on the table.
Yes.
Very soon we'll have to wrap up this conversation. But while you are responding to that, I would like both of you to also talk about alleged corruption in the administration of public universities.
That's right.
Alleged corruption. And in this case, these are high graft cases of corruption. And otherwise, some of these problems that ASU picks up the gauntlet each time to confront the federal government could be solved internally.
I will address them. But let's talk about the autonomy. Historically, universities started as autonomous institutions. Okay? And the quarrel between scholars and the state is a historic one. It is when the state, as an institution on society, discovered that the impact of society in universities is so great that they thought they should be party to that and control that, and grants were given, okay, to facilitate research and bring development. And gradually, government creeps in the environment of scholars, okay, and took over all this responsibility. But the battle is a historic one in all societies in this world, that irrespective of taking over, the scholars will resist. Don't interfere in what I'm investigating, in what I'm teaching, in what really, in the way we are organizing ourselves. Allow us to do it in our traditional way. So in principle, autonomy in the university system is about respecting the laws and statutes of the university. And if you read that act, it's about that. For example, part of what we've agreed in government is that administrative encumbrances of government should not affect the universities. There are certain things that universities should be exempted from so that you don't interfere, you know.
Like the IPPIS?
Of course, you know. You don't, you know, there is no university from the country where this IPPIS idea came that is run on IPPIS.
And those countries,
for example,
their university staff are also paid by the government.
Of course.
All right, Prof. Okay, Prof. Take the issue.
I will take the issue of corruption.
I'll
take the issue of corruption. Yes, I'm taking the issue of corruption. Look, ASU is at the forefront in fighting corruption in Nigerian universities. And in fact, our colleagues have suffered so much out of it.
How?
The crisis in University of Ilorin emerged because of the challenge of our union as to the way the university resources were managed. Okay? And it has reached a point in which both the administration and the council were involved in the mismanagement of the funds. And our members there raised that matter to the point of visitation. And they were sacked. And they were sent out for almost 7 years, you know, later on, dragged even to the Supreme Court before they are reinstated. Right now, as I'm saying, as I'm speaking, there are some of our chairmen who are out of their jobs simply because they are challenging the authorities in the corrupt way they are managing the resources of the universities. Scholars that are with clear sense of understanding what a university is will challenge corruption. But the fact is that because there is, as we suspect, you know, a support between those administrators who are doing corrupt practices in the university and some people that back them in government, nothing happens. Let's take the case of Umudike, University of Agriculture. The atrocities committed in that university, which we documented and passed on to government relevant institutions, not just the Federal Ministry of Education, but even including EFCC and other, you know, what has happened?
Maybe,
instead,
maybe they are still studying.
I see. After the Vice Chancellor has finished his tenure and left. You know, and up to now, you know, we are insisting. We haven't kept quiet.
Assuming
as far as we are concerned, we will not keep quiet about that. We continue that struggle.
Assuming there are offences, you know? Those offences will not be statute barred. So,
of course, that's what I'm saying. That's why we are not going to give up on that.
You see, when you take the issue of corruption, you realize that ASU, like he said, are actually in forefront of fighting corruption. And there is also a mechanism within the system that is supposed to check corruption. But unfortunately, again, government is not sincere. Because even this issue of visitations, there are matters that are supposed to actually check what administrators after administrators are doing, and then bring out a white paper to say that these are, and in the visitation reports, you will find areas of financial management. What has happened in this, what has happened in that, and they are supposed to examine all the things that were done for the period. And ASU is insisting that this thing should be regular. But government is not doing it. So if you are talking about corruption in the system, even though, like you say, it is some isolated cases, but it is because the government is not doing what it ought to do in terms of monitoring the system as it were. Because if these visitation panels were supposed to do it as regular as they were supposed to be every 5 years, before a vice chancellor completes a tenure, you will find out that the visitation panel will have visited the place, determine what went wrong, and say how it could be, so that the other, but if somebody is going to do 5 years and finish, and nothing has happened, another one has gone 5 years and finish, when they come, they will say the visitation panel should start from a certain period that exonerate another a particular section. So some other people will, and you will find that they are not doing it regularly. And even if it is done, nothing is said about the report. Like part of the problems of ASU today is that bring out the report of the station panel of 2020.
All right, Professor Mainoma, back to the crux of the matter. ASU is on strike, 4 weeks rollover strike. So how do we get both parties back on the negotiating table before the expiration of the 4 weeks?
It's for government to apprehend the situation. ASU has a principle that whoever invites it for a talk to address a problem, they go.
You see, somebody is saying at the background report that they were not told about the strike. Now that they are told about the strike, what have they done?
But the strike is already on. And Prof is saying apprehend. Apprehend means before you go on strike. But
that's
now,
right.
Now it's a fait accompli.
Did you listen to the president?
No, sir,
when he's telling you all the things that has happened.
Yeah. So what?
If you have done, if you say that you are doing strike for 1 month, and today they are able to solve the problem, will the strike not stop?
Sorry, but we know all this, the barrage of needs, basic needs you have cannot be solved today. So why? Prof, let's that's why I asked my first question. Is ASU morally sincere? So let us apply morality to their demands. Yeah. What do we do at the moment so that ASU and government can come back to the negotiating table so that we don't have to have prolonged or rollover strike? And students, I suffered 1 year ASU strike during my days. We don't want that for our children.
Yeah, it is very simple, actually.
So what do we do?
What they do is that both parties must be sincere in presentation. And good thing about ASU is that they are very realistic. Once they find out that what they are asking for cannot be done in a particular period, they will agree to spread it, that it should be done after a long period. And if it is something that it appears some change of regulation, they will agree that, okay, let's do the change of regulation before we do it. So it is not really what it is. This thing is actually on the table of government. Because
and part of what is on the table of government, sometimes it becomes an elephant in the room, which has to do with government revenue. Government revenue is limited. You can quarrel, you can make all the arguments. Government will tell you that it has security challenges, it has health issues to confront, it has general infrastructure to deal with, and so on and so forth. Plus, funding education. Education isn't the only item that government deals with. I'm just wondering, gentlemen, why does ASU run away from the issue? And Professor Mainoma, who's been a guest on Good Morning Nigeria on a number of occasions, put up a socialist argument, if I may say, at one point, to say, look, what is wrong with charging fees, tuition fees, of a reasonable amount in federal universities? What is wrong? Do we still think that this is the oil boom era of the 1970s or of the 1980s? What is wrong? We keep talking about poor parents, poor guardians, and so on and so forth. What is wrong? All the issues, most of the issues, by the time you crunch them, Prof, there are issues relating to finance. What is your student population today? When I was a student, all I needed to do was get my bag from home and go to school. I go to the university. The bedding provided by the institutions, the cleaning of the rooms and the hostels provided by the institution, and so on and so forth. Tuition meal was 50 kobo, and so on, 50 kobo per meal, a day 150 kobo. You can't do that today. So what is wrong with saying, I'll give you an example now. Proper funding. Would 100,000 kill any family in Nigeria today? To earn university education.
There are a number of ways.
No. What he's saying is reasonable, but it is the morality question, sir. The real issue is that you find out that in Nigeria today, if you introduce school fees, as it is, that they are paying minimal charges of up to about 70,000 naira.
Yes.
If you say without school fees, there are other charges that are up to about 70,000 naira.
Municipal charges.
Yes. So you find out that, and how many families can afford to, apart from paying that, also maintain the students in school? Because it is that you find out that a great majority of the families in Nigeria today do not earn that they can sponsor 3 people to university. So that is why, but government is in a position to prioritize its spendings and then provide for the running of the universities.
And that is why it has
place,
federal cover.
You see, in the first place,
yes,
there is an agreement between us and government in which they will not charge fees. In the second place, the objective reality of Nigerian situation is that 70% of Nigerian people are below the poverty line.
Professor Sule, you have just 30 seconds.
And indeed, under that circumstance, if you analyze and, of course, put on a plan of the kind of manpower that Nigeria needs to develop, the children of those who can afford to send their children to universities cannot manage Nigeria.
Professor Abdullahi,
we need the majority of Nigerian people to have access to university.
All right,
yes,
no problem. But I do hope that when arguments are being made sometime in the future, like always, because we always hear those arguments, what has Nigeria done with its resources over time? We should always remember that the federal government, for instance, continues to subsidize tertiary education.
Okay, Kinsley, let me quickly appreciate our guest, Professor Abdullahi Sule Kanu, former president of Academic Staff Union of Universities. Thank you very much for your insight.
Thank you.
And Professor Mohammed Mainoma, former vice chancellor, Nasarawa State University, my VC. Thank you very much for joining us. Earlier on, we had the president of ASU, Professor Emmanuel Oshodeke, of course, who left us much earlier in the course of the program. Let's quickly look at what's happening in the world of sports.
FIFA have banned 4 Argentina players, 3 from the Premier League, after September's World Cup qualifier against Brazil was abandoned.